So Tajweed again is not, as I told you, it's not Quran and Sunnah, although part of it is narration from the Prophet ﷺ. But part of it is, how do you say the Arabic word? The Arabic word existed before the Quran existed, right? So I'm trying to preserve the Arabic word, and the scholars devised this. A lot of this science is devised. The scholars themselves set up this whole system. So what I'm giving you now is I'm letting you in what the scholars did. I'm letting you into that tradition. That doesn't mean that tradition is like ma'soom or anything like that. But this tradition is devised by the scholars to protect the Quran and the Sunnah, right? So, how am I understanding the letter? Okay? So, there's when I look at the Quran, I'm seeing full verses, right? So, I look at the verses, then I find that the a sentence is made of words. Then the words are made of letters. So what I'm actually doing is now looking at the units of how to make a word. So first of all, I look at the letter alone. So what I'm gonna try to do here is I'm gonna try to describe the letter alone. So last semester, what we did is we described a letter from a certain perspective. This semester, we're gonna talk about a letter from another perspective. But me as a scholar, what am I doing? I have a letter, and I'm gonna describe the letter, how to recite it. For example, I have the letter meme. Meme. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna describe how am I pronouncing the meme. So I'll say, the meme comes from the closing of the lips. And I'm just gonna write it down. I have the letter qaf. So I'm gonna look at qaf, and I'm gonna say up, up, up. And then I'm going to describe the letter. I'm going to say it's from the back of the tongue with the soft part of the upper palate. I describe physically how am I as an Arab pronouncing the letter. So this thing becomes a science, right? I'm physically describing the letter, right? So first of all, I look at the letter alone. Then simple. I look how do I combine letters. If I know how to say the letter alone, and I know how to combine the letters together, I can read the whole Quran. This is the whole science of Tajweed, and I'm going to show you that. But this is literally the whole science. Yani there's nothing in the science that goes outside the description I told you right now. What is the description I told you right now? I'm looking at the letter alone, describing the letter alone, and then I'm describing how the letter combines. That's it. That's the full science. Okay? So. Okay. So how did the scholars describe what a letter is? Alas? So this is what we did last semester. Place of articulation. This semester we're gonna go here. And we're going to continue, and hopefully we're going to go past it as well. Ramadan is coming. We're going to see how much time do we have. But at the very least, we're going to finish this section. Okay? So, how do scholars actually describe a letter, scientifically describe a letter? I have a letter, and I know how to say it, and I want to describe it somehow. It goes like this. The scholar he himself is the truth. He puts himself as the truth because he is an Arab. He supposedly knows how to speak Arabic. Basically what he does is, he looks how can one emit the letter. He looks at the physical parts of his mouth or throat or something like that to know how can one emit the letter. So, for example, you have the letter dal. So what does he do? He puts a hamza, right? He puts a hamza before the letter he wants to learn. And he recites the letter with no fatha kasr dhamma. He recites the letter with sukoon. So he says ad. So he doesn't say adda, addu, addi. He doesn't do that. He said ad. Ad. And then he checks out where does his tongue stop. He checks out where his tongue stops. So try to figure out where does your tongue stop. Ad. 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 The idea is, is that he's supposedly saying it correctly. So he's gonna note down which part of his tongue is hitting which part of his upper mouth. So what he says is, it's the tip of the tongue with the roots of the teeth. That's the description. The tip of the tongue with the roots of the teeth. Now somebody says, well, I'm kind of doing it wrong. That's where the training comes in. So this practice that we do, which is put a hamza before and then put the letter sukoon after, right? This practice is for us to know where we're at. So I'll give you a description, and then you figure out what you actually do, and then you try to bring what you actually do to what actually is the description. So for example, qaf. A lot of people, they don't know how to say qaf, right? Say ak, ag. Different ways. They say ka, ka, ka. That's not pure qaf. Qa, qa, qa. So what is this practice gonna do? You're gonna feel where you at. You're gonna say ak, ak, ak. You're gonna feel the part of your tongue with the part of the upper palate. Then I'm gonna give you the description with a picture. And what you're supposed to do is that you're gonna have the feeling that you're having, and you're trying to link that feeling with the description I'm giving you, and then you're trying to reach there. That's what you're trying to do. For the scholar, he was just doing it and writing it down. For us, no. We look at what is written down, we look at what we do, and we try to merge them to become one by practice. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm telling you what they did. What they did is to figure out where do they actually emit the sound. Okay? The place you're emitting the sound is called place of articulation. The place you emit the sound is called place of articulation. So last semester, the whole time, what we did is we went through letter by letter, and we described where the sound is, and we tried to help you figure out what to do. Okay. Now, some letters like that, then. Some letters like that and that actually come from the same place. Like if you look at here, I go with the tip of my tongue and hit the tip of my incisors. So I say F, but at the same time, I go with the tip of tongue and hit the same place, but I say Az, Az. My description is not unique. So when I'm describing the letter, my description is actually not unique to that letter. So I haven't been able to describe the letter uniquely. So I'm missing something. What am I missing? That's where the scholars talk about properties. So what am I missing? Grab your throat and say F. F. Do you feel anything? F. Okay, now say F. F. What do you feel? Vibration. Is vibration part of the place of articulation? Is something super added? Not super added. Like something added to the letter. Actually, you cannot say added. You say it's part of what the letter actually is. Because notice this. I'm gonna do this. Notice what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna show you right now that to prove to you, by the way, that it's actually coming from the same exact place of articulation. I'm gonna actually stay there and flip from that to that. Look at this. What did I do? I'm staying in the same spot. I didn't move. All I'm doing is, I'm just vibrating my vocal cords. Right? So I'm going back and forth. It's the same place of articulation. The same physical parts are actually in their spots. What am I doing is, I'm just adding vibration. This vibration is the first property we're actually going to talk about next time. Okay? Does that make sense? So, what did the scholars do? The most commonsensical thing. I'm saying a letter, I need to know the physical part. I'm saying an, ah. What is that? Is that here? Is that up there? Where? Where in the throat? Is it the middle of the throat? Is it the top of the throat? So there's a lot of introspection. You know, he's trying to feel it. He tells you where it is, and tells you the actual motion that happens. Then he notices that that's not enough. I'm doing something else sometimes. Sometimes letters are exactly from the same spot, but they're coming different sounds. So they talk about place properties. The claim is, that's the claim. Once you know the place of articulation, plus you know the properties, you supposedly be able to emit the sound correctly. That's the phonetics claim. That if the system actually should be able to work, I would be able to describe the letter fully for you to emit the sound. And I'm going to try to defend that system in front of you and show its power to you. Because at the end of the day, it's a phonetical system. Okay? And there's no it's, from my understanding, there's no it's not revelation in some sense, right? It's not a revelatory thing. But obviously, it's been used to preserve the Quran and Sunnah, but it itself was manufactured. There's no hadith that tells you the throat, and you know what I'm saying? Okay, this big thing. I'm showing you this big thing. It's very simple, but I'm going to show it to you quickly. This is the full tajweed. This is tajweed. That's it. There's nothing else after this in tajweed. Okay? So let me prove to you that this is tajweed. So tajweed starts with you with the letter. Oh, this doesn't work. Tajweed starts with the with the letter. Khalas? We talked about that. I'm going to give you the place of articulation. I'm going to give you the physical part. Then I'm going to give you the properties. Some properties, if I remove them, the letter. Again, listen to what I'm saying. Some properties, like the tha and the dhal, if I change that property, the letter stops existing. We call this property essential property. So a property that is part of what the letter actually is called an essential property. Without it, no letter. The letter changes, it transforms into another letter, even if you get the place of articulation correctly. That's called an essential attribute. Then we have non-essential ones. Ignore this part. We're going to talk about it later. What is this? What is this transit attribute? This is the whole of tajweed. Mad, nun sakina, nun sakina, mad, idgham. So what is this? This is basically when two letters combine, does something change or not? A transient attribute, obviously a transient attribute, it's an attribute that's not part of the letter, but that's just technical. Why is it useful? It's useful to tell you what happens when two letters combine. So when I have okay, I have min qabl. Min qabl. This noon here, if we're talking about the noon on its own, it's n, the tip of the tongue with the gums, and I can give you the attributes. But somehow, when the noon comes before a qaf, what do we say? We say min qabl, min qabl. What happened? The noon kind of changed. I need to know that. Why? Because the Quran is not letters on its own. It's letters combined. So I need to know that. We know that. We know that here. So the attributes of the letter that happens because of the meeting of different letters together is called a transient attribute.
So like, I'm going to get to this later, but
Yeah.
when you reach an ayah, and then I think you stretch the last sort of sound.
Yes.
Would that be considered a transient?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, for example, so alamin, right? So ala, the ya here, e. يعني إياك. The ya, I can tell you the place of articulation. It's the middle of the tongue. We can talk about that. But it's not part of ya to e. This is med. This med is a transient attribute. Why? Because it came after a sukoon letter. عارض للسكون, like a non-original sukoon letter. So it's actually because of the meetings of the letter. So that's why it's a transient attribute. An essential attribute, without it, the letter does not even exist. So it's always with every type of situation the letter should be in. A transient attribute is generally when the meanings of letters happen. That is it. That is tajweed. What is tajweed? Get your letters right. How do I get my letters right? Get the place right, get the attributes right. What is after that? I can read really good, by the way, without the attributes. I say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka. I'm not doing any mad ghunna, I'm not. But my recitation is not that bad. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. I didn't do the mad. So if you get these two down, then the transient attributes is the letter غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. That's the transient attributes. Does that make sense? So these concepts, I want it to be there in your head all the time. Why? Because this is the structure. So I want you, when you think of tajweed, think of the structure and then trickle down. Do not think of noon sakina, dal is here. Forget about the dal. You can figure it out, like you can search it up later. Khalas? If you have that structure clear in your mind, then easily the things are going to come much easier, okay? So this is the whole tajweed. And I'm going to show you, obviously, a definition of a scholar of tajweed. What is tajweed? And I'm going to show you that it's that. Okay? All right. So, we kind of talked mostly about this, but I'm giving you an example here. Ta and ta. Right? Ta and ta. So, ta. Ta is very close. Well, I'll say it's nearly identical in the place of articulation to ta. The difference is a property called isti'la and itbaq. And we're going to talk about this property in the next class. Or we'll see. But that's literally the differentiation between the letter. So, it has essential attributes, okay? And then we talked about the transient attributes. Okay? So the example is min qabl. This I'm going to recite it if I don't have tajweed in my head. Min qabl. Ra'aytuhu min qabl. Like when we speak normally, in Arabic we say ra'aytuhu min qabl. I'll not say ra'aytuhu min qabl. Right? I'll never say that. When I'm doing tajweed, and notice I didn't put the sukoon here. But anyway, when I get here, because the qaf comes after the noon, there's a rule in tajweed that says you have to do min qabl. Okay? And we explain this whole rule. I'll tell you, okay, I define what this rule is called. It's called ikhfa. Which letters come after it? I'll tell you how to do it. You do a bit from the nose, a bit from the mouth. I'll tell you the whole thing. This is the transient attributes. Okay? So, letter alone, letter combined. Letter alone, letter combined. Letter alone, letter combined. Okay? Okay. All right. So we finished the letter alone. I'm going to give you a bit more, like let's say salt and pepper, on how to recite the letter combined. There's a bit more detail with combination of letters that has to be done. So I'll ask you a question, okay? Listen to this. I'll recite two different ways and tell me which way you think is better, okay? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. That's one way, okay? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Which way is better and why? And why? Because by mistake I raised my voice. It's not the raising of the voice. Which way is better and why? Yeah?
First one.
Why?
Consistent with how long you stay at the end.
I wasn't. I made the same mistake twice, so
Yeah.
that wouldn't be an answer. I made the mistake the first one.
Better.
Okay, first one. Who thinks first one is better? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Who thinks second one is better? 1. Okay, I'll do it again. The first is the first and the second is the second. I'll do it again. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. Second one. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين.
Elongating the hand, yeah. When you say pain, you're like the second time you're just elongating the hand, yeah, a little more. First time you're using it a little.
Okay. I'll make it really terrible the first one, and then I'll make it as clear as possible. Okay? الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين. Second one. الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين. I'm doing it quickly because I'm making it difficult for a reason. Like I could go slowly and you'll see it immediately. Yes?
The second one, you're putting more emphasis on each letter, so it's clear.
More emphasis on each letter. Close. Close. Yeah. You're going to say that? Okay. So basically, what did I do? I just made the harakat clear. The first one is Alhamdulillahi Rabb. Alhamdulillah. I'll recite it again. I'll do slow motion of the first one. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I'll do it. You don't believe me, it's the first. I know you don't believe me, but I'll do it quickly and you'll believe me. Alhamdulillahi, alhamdulillah, do, le. Alhamdulillahi, alhamdulillahi. There's no hamdo in Arabic. It's hamdu. There's no le, there is li. So basically what I'm trying to say is there is fatha, kasra, and dhamma. That's what I'm basically saying. And you have to get fatha, kasra, dhamma correctly. Why do people like the first recitation? So people tell me, yes, okay, Hazim, I know, you're right, harakat, yes, but I still like the first one. The first one sounds more correct. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Why? Because most reciters recite like this. Most reciters are very lax in their harakat. If you hear a lot of reciters say, Alhamdu, Alhamdulillah, do, not do. Do, li. Why is it important? When you accumulate the sounds over time, you hear the difference. So if someone, his harakat is very weak, you'll find his recitation so monotone. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. There's no up and down. The person who gets the harakat right, الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد. There's more flow in the harakat. Okay? So basically, you should get your harakat down. Okay? Why is harakat part of flow? Okay, so I want you to notice this, right? Okay, actually, I think I have it here. So why am I? Look at this. A, E, I, O, U. Why? Who knows why vowels are used? Like, why is there something called vowels and consonants? What is that? What is that weird distinction that we make?
Is the idea that like vowels don't have sound within themselves, but allow consonants to have sounds?
I don't know if that's how you learned it, but it sounds a bit close to what I want to talk about. Okay, something else?
It's a elongation to help bring the consonants together.
It's an elongation to help bring the consonants together, right? So actually vowels in the Arabic language are not letters. They're harakat. So look at this. A, E, I, O, U. Fatha, kasra, dhamma. So what actually happens is the fatha, kasra, dhamma is for us to combine letters. That's all it is. Right? In the Arabic language, we don't have two sukoons after each other, except in edge cases. But you don't find two sukoons after each other. Like two letters that have sukoon, you don't find it, except in edge cases. Again. In the Arabic language, what is the longest consonant substring? It's 3. From what I searched. You can search it again if it's correct. It's splash. Spill, 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 spill. You really can't say consonant after each other. Spill, spill. You need the spla. You need the spla. In Arabic, it's the same. You cannot say shur, shur. You have to say shar, sha, shar. You cannot say shur, shur. You actually do because sometimes you have to say it.
With 12 consonants.
Huh?
There's a word with 12 consecutive consonants.
Oh, okay. Is that like normal English or is that like manufactured like word?
Yeah, I don't know, but I can't say the word.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's fine. Okay? So the idea of consonant is that it's how we combine letters. Does that make sense? Sorry. Okay. Any questions till now? So what I'm, again, I want you to be with me. What am I doing is, I'm explaining the letter on its own, and now I'm explaining to you some details about the letter together. And I'm telling you how actually letters combine together. I'm telling you, you have alameen, for example, right? Alami. You actually need to know you need to know how to say a with a fatha. Like what am I actually doing? Like we kind of skip that part, we say a. But like, what am I actually doing? I need to tell you what you're actually doing to be able to combine the letters together. Does that make sense? Okay. So what are we actually doing? What are we actually doing? Fatha is the daughter of alif. Kasra is the daughter of ya. Dhamma is the daughter of waw. So when I say hamdu, if I elongate it, if I keep going, it should sound like a waw. Alhamdu, that's a waw right there, right? If I say hamdu, that's not dhamma. Same thing with kasra. Alhamdu li. If I elongate the wrong one, it would be li. Alhamdu li. So how do I check if my fatha kasra dhamma is correct? I check what? If I elongate it, what will it transform into? If it transforms to its parent, then we're good. Okay? Okay, now, what am I exactly doing? What am I exactly doing is this. I go to the place of articulation. I emit the sound from the place of articulation. I go to the place of articulation of alif, waw, ya. Leave the theory. Let's do it. You have ba. What is the place of articulation of ba? Is the lips. Okay. How am I going to do it? First of all, I'll go to the lips. I close, it's closing of the lips, so I close it. And then I go to the place of articulation of the waw. Boo, boo, boo. So I emit the letter with the harakah. Exactly with or immediately after. The reason I kept it there because it gets too technical, I actually don't know. But it's around there. So, boo. Now a letter that does not have something like ayn. So ayn is the movement of the throat. So I say, a. Or, let's do dhamma because it's clear. Ooh, ooh. So the sound and the letter come together. The dhamma and the letter come together. There's no ayn before dhamma. You don't say a'u, a'u. No. What do you say? A'u. So you don't say and then you add a'u there. No, no, no. Together. A'u, ai, a, a'u, ai, ba, bu, bi. So I go to the place of articulation of the fatha or the kasra or the dhamma. What is the place of articulation of dhamma? The lips. Boo. I went there. Okay? That's what you do. So what do? You go to the place of articulation. You do the place of articulation, whatever that means depending on the letter, with the place of articulation of the alif, waw, and ya. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Okay, last thing, which also relates to the letters combining. I think we should be, next class I should try to put a break in the middle. I tried to do that last time, I didn't do that. I should try to put break in the middle. Anyway, so last thing is when you combine letters, so imagine you have like pieces of units and you're trying to combine them. If they don't seamlessly go through each other, it becomes like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Rahmanir Rahim. Okay? Why? Because you have so perfected every letter that every letter, now you're trying to combine, you're like, this happens a lot when you, and for me, it's like a spectrum. The more quality you have, the less flow you have. The more flow you have, the general less quality you have. The correct is for them to somehow merge. But generally what I find in people is that the more flow they have, the less quality they have. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. Fatha is not there, Dhamma is not there, Kasra is not there, but it's amazing. The meme flows to the lam, you don't even know which one came before the other, like they mix, like they intertwine, they're beautiful. But if I go, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman, you're like, you know, like there's some type of lack of flow. Correct is to combine both. The seamlessness plus the quality. I'm more on the quality side. I generally have trouble with flow. But what I'll try is, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. Still a little bit there, but the more you get better, the more you're going to get the kasra, the dhamma, the more you're going to hear the letter. Some people eat up letters to a point. Like some people, their flow is so quick, you don't hear the Sirat al-Ladhin. Where's the lam? Sirat al-Ladhin, Sirat al. Just throw it in there, you know. So Just from me, but they don't actually say the lam. The other guy, me, صراط. The lam and just stops. No, the correct is صراط الذين. ها صراط الذين صراط not صراط الذين. So somehow you have to combine the seamlessness with the quality. Not eating up the letter and not eating up the fatha kasra dhamma, but at the same time destroying the people around you and destroying yourself with it, My shaykh, every time I recite to him, is like, the kaf is, it's like a slave and it's asking you for forgiveness, because I say the kaf, Why? Because I was scared in front of him, I was trying to recite well. So you generally, you over-exaggerate quality. And you try to make the letter but when you focus on the letter so much, you tense up your tongue, and your tongue does not flow to the next letter. It takes time for it because you tensed it up, you structured it into the kaf. It wants to go to the next letter, it gets stuck. It's like a muscle, it gets stuck there, and you have to relax it again. So you should be relaxed the whole time. So always remember, one of the most important things, your tongue is a muscle. If you tense it up, it tenses up. You need the muscle to be strong enough to do what it's supposed to do, but it's malleable enough to keep on moving. If you say ak, and you push it in, next letter is hard. It's nearly impossible. And that's why some letters for you'll find that going to the next letter is very difficult. Letters that you're not comfortable with. Wasbir. Sad for some people is very difficult. So what do they? Was, and they stop, and then they say bir. Wasbir. Why? Why do they stop? Because the sad is there and it's tensed up, and he wants to go to the ba, but he's tense is there, and he doesn't know what to do. No, it should be calm. But obviously this requires muscle strength. So you have to practice the sad for a long time until your tongue is strong enough to go to the letter and leave it seamlessly. But if your muscle is weak, you're just gonna spasm. It's fine. Give yourself time by practice. If your muscle is weak, it's gonna spasm, right? So I'll make a final recap. So, what did we talk about? Talked about a letter on its own. A letter on its own has physical properties to emit the letter. Okay? You have physical place, like a physical place, not physical property, what did I say property? Physical place to emit the sound. Sometimes the physical place you choose is actually the same as another letter. So you have something else. We call this the essential attribute. An essential attribute, if you remove the letter, this stops existing, like the dal and the tha. Then we talked about the transient attributes. These attributes are what? When letters combine, something happens. So, what is it doing? Yeah. So, when you're combining letters, focus on three things. The transient attributes, normal tajweed, fatha kasra dhamma properly. Why? Because fatha kasra dhamma is the way you combine letters. Then with flow. Do not get one letter down and smoke all the others. Khalas? How do you do that? Practice the letter on its own until your muscle is strong enough to go there without tensing up. وَاصْبِرْ وَمَا صَبْرْ. The sad for me was very difficult, but now I can go smoothly into the ba. Look, whilst I'm comfortable to stay there. By the way, staying in the letter is so difficult. See, whilst. Why is it important to stay there? So I transition to the ba easily. Look at that. وَاصْبِرْ. If I cannot stay there, if I cannot say was, if I say wasbir, lack of flow. I got the sad really well. The sad sounds great, but the ba, wasbir. So I need to stay in the sad, but my muscle has to be strong enough to stay there. So wasbir وما صبرك إلا بالله ولا تحزن ولا تحزن علي. See zen. This is because I still struggled. ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تك في ضيق مما يمكرون. يمكر يمكر. The smoothness and flow makes the recitation beautiful, makes people around you beautiful, without sacrificing a tajweed. You can do all flow you want, but you can easily eat up 15 letters and say, oh, mashallah, I'm reciting well. Okay, habibi. Huh? No, if you get the letters down with good flow, then we're talking. Okay? Any questions? Does that make sense? A lot of tajweed is just muscle play. وَلَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ تَرْكِهِ إِلَّا رِيَاضَةُ امْرِئٍ بِفَكِّهِ. There's no, like, the only thing that stops people from actually doing tajweed is they're not training their jaw, basically. That's what he literally said, the Shaykh. That's what he literally said. One last thing, just quickly, I'll show you. This is the definition of tajweed by the most famous poem on tajweed. He says, tajweed, إعطاء الحروف حقها, essential properties. من كل صفة ومستحقها, non-essential. ورد كل واحد لأصله, place of articulation. This, I just wanted to show you that this from the, like, I'm just not making stuff up. Yani. Like, I make stuff up, but like this not one of them, right? So I just wanted to show you that this is part of the famous poem of Jazariya. We kind of go through Jazari, kind of, but not really. But this, a lot of what we go through is inspired, obviously, from the poem. This is the beginner poem that talks about all the rules of tajweed. If one wants to start tajweed, you start with a smaller poem, but this is the main poem that you can say after you finish. You're like, okay, I started. Okay? So it's called Al-Jazariyya. Okay? I just want to show you also the definition. Okay? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم guys.